to welcome all of you here to our GDTA May session. The Global Design Thinking Alliance has this monthly event, which we're calling the Spotlight session, and I'm really thrilled that we have a very good old friend today here. Again, actually, I think 5 years ago, 4 years ago, he was already part of the Spotlight. At that time, we called the Spotlight Powwow, the GDTA Powwow. We renamed it soon after. And Arne van Oosterom is joining us today from Holland, from Haarlem. I'm really happy that we get a chance to chat with him today and to listen to him, because Arne is one of the true pioneers of design thinking in Europe, I would say. When we started the D-School 2007, he was already around and started the Design Thinkers Group, a very vivid network. And with the Design Thinkers Academy, he was training a lot of people. He was bringing them close to the design thinking mindset. And he helped to shape a global movement around human-centered innovation and creative leadership and systemic change. And his work was has actually empowered countless numbers of individuals and organizations. We would chatted quite often about the transformation processes lots of organizations were in at that time, from moving from analog doing things to digital doing things, and making use of design thinking as an innovation process. And last year, I witnessed that he changed the name of Design Thinkers Academy to Future Skills Academy. And that was about the time when I was planning, together with lots of people, with a group of education innovators in Germany, the Future Skills Alliance, an innovation network for education in Germany. And I was really curious why nearly at the same time we were using the same terminology and not moving away from the thinking of design thinking, but actually broadening the scope. And I'm really curious to learn about the new view, or the expanded view of Arne today here, how he looks at design thinking, how he looks at future skills. And he framed it quite nicely, and he will talk about how to come from knowledge to curiosity, from planning to adaptation actually, and from roles to relationships. So give a big hand of applause to Arne van Oosterom. I'm so happy that you were here and you're joining.
I'm so happy to be here. And yes, it's been a long time. And it's interesting how the world of design thinking and innovators and creative thinkers is evolving, and we are going with the flow. There's this, if you listen, if you have your eyes open and your ears open, and you engage with a lot of people, you kind of, so sometimes I just don't know where information or ideas come from. They just kind of emerge, and it's also a way of saying, yeah, let's go, and this is interesting. I'm curious about this. So that's part of also obviously what I would like to talk about. So yeah, thank you for having me again. So shall I jump right in? Yeah. All right. Cool. So, so I've prepared sort of a little bit of a talk about what Uli was just saying, these three shifts about that I think at least are interesting to explore. This is about knowledge going into more of a kind of being curious, planning to adaptation, roles to relationships. And so it's interesting how you mentioned, moving from design thinking to future skills. Sometimes, again, I said, I'll tell you a little anecdote about me. Long time ago, this is like in the late 90s, I joined a company as a creative director. I was a design agency We actually started shifting away from the sort of more graphic design and all that to creating websites and more of that web design and all that, and interactive design. Then, just when right after, I think a year or so after we decided that hiring different kind of people, really upskilling us, we had the dot-com crisis, and the whole thing went just kind of bust, and there was a huge problem because we lost lots of clients, and that was a big crisis. Then when I left that agency, I started, this is 2006, 2007. I started Design Thinkers Group, Design Thinkers Academy, which was very new at the time. And, and I also wanted to experiment with a sort of a network organization, which was really new. In 2008, we had the financial crisis. So the whole thing went a boom again. It was already, we were like, oh no, again, very difficult time to get clients because everybody, when there's a crisis, usually what companies do is they freeze. There's a typical kind of, and the first thing they won't do is, hire, creative people, and they will stop sort of their educational things and stuff. So that we were in trouble again. So in 2019, beginning of 2020, I decided to shift from Design Thinkers Academy. Actually, I didn't change the name. It's still there. I left. I sold it. I wanted to start another company. Beginning 2020, I decided to do so. I didn't know the name yet. There was something in the air. I thought I need a change because design thinking became too much boxed in as a tool or method, and I wanted to do something different. So you guessed it, March 2020, COVID happened, and we're like, okay, great. So be aware, if I do anything else, if I leave any company or change, there's going to be a crisis. I think I'm the canary in the coal mine. I'm not really sure. Yeah, but I think there's something going on. Anyway, I decided on the name Future Skills Academy because, first of all, I personally love training, but also future skills, it has this openness, and design thinking obviously has all these skills there. Also, as creative facilitators, we have all these skills that are so important to be future ready. And so, but I didn't like the label because it became I became too boxed in, if you will. Okay, so my story of change, and I think is something that you probably also have those stories, right? We all have those stories, right? We all have stories where we kind of we jumped into something, we believe in something, and then everything changed, right? It can be anything, it can be very personal, or now all of a sudden there's like a trade war because Trump created all these tariffs, which also scares sorry, I didn't want to say shit, but I just did, out of other companies. It also, and then there's AI. It is confusing a lot of people. What is it going to do? And so me as a designer and a creative as well, and I see it around me, that designers and creatives are also really sometimes really worried. Is that going to replace us? Because if I ask, Mid-Journey to create a beautiful image, it creates this beautiful image. It's like, huh, what's happening. I also felt, especially in the beginning, especially when the launch of ChatGPT and the hype was at its peak, there is the feeling of oh, what is it going to do? Am I supposed to be scared of this? And I think this is where um, I think curiosity becomes a superpower. And so the first shift I I want to talk about is this from knowledge to curiosity. So it's very simple. It used to be so that knowledge is power. Knowledge is sorry, I have to. Still early for me. So we have been in a time where knowledge is power. When you have the knowledge, you can have influence or power. Um, but that time is gone. I was just talking to Uli before this call. I said, I talked to my the other day. I talked to my son, and I showed him like on his phone. I told him on your phone you have all the knowledge ever created by the human race, ever. Everything is there at your fingertips. And he goes, yeah. So, so he's like, yeah, of course I have. Like, what do you mean? It's amazing, right? But he has all the knowledge. But what do you do with it? What do you want? What are the questions that you have? And so, it is about being curious, which is like, what can we do with this? How can I use it? Asking questions. And curiosity also means critical thinking. Also means like, where does that all come from? What's underneath this thing? Because there's answers everywhere. Knowledge and information is free, available for me I want to train and educate and coach people. But then I noticed that if I want to sell a say training on say design thinking, people go like, yeah, just watch a YouTube video. It's free. It's all there. So where do I go? So again, we're at this moment where we go, oh, how do I create real value? What with all the knowledge? It's all there. So I think also part of that will be how can I harness that knowledge? How can I select the knowledge? How can I become a curator of knowledge so it becomes something that is specifically for me? Anyway, so I mean, um, I'm pretty sure that no, the audience here, the people listening, are all curious, and open-minded people. I'm guessing, and so I'm pretty sure you kind of. I don't know if I'd love to hear if we can have a talk in a moment about how curiosity, if you think about it, has helped you actually move forward. Because to me, I always say if something happens to me, I can go like, oh, it's terrible. Oh, what do I do? Or you could go, wait, it's interesting. I like to know what's happening, right? It's going to happen. Okay, interesting. I'm curious. So I think it's also a positive attitude. And design thinking to me was always this positive attitude. It's like, if I'm not going to be cynical, I'm going to make the world a better place. I know that's naive, but I'd rather be naive than be cynical. I'd rather go like, well, I'm going to try anyway. It's interesting. Yes, AI is scary because it has all these, because it has these biases and all this stuff. Yes, of course. But it's also a tool that can elevate us as people. It can help us free our time to do more meaningful things. And we have to go through this kind of messiness and this chaos. But that's also the most creative time that we have. This is the time that we can actually really do something amazing because nobody knows what's going to happen. And everybody, is a bit nervous and nobody can predict the future. And for creatives like us, this is the time. So that's I think the shift from knowledge to curiosity. Everything is possible. And then the other shift from planning to that adaptation, I mean, it's obviously connected to, I mean, I just told you this story of me. I was planning to do all these things. I planned to be this amazing creative director at this internet kind of company, and the whole thing exploded. I wanted to go start the Design Thinkers group, and then there was a crisis. And then, I can't, now, we have AI, there was the COVID. There's going to be more disasters. I mean, I'm also kind of, I'm right now, I hesitate to say, but I'm going to be 57 at the end of this year, so I'm getting old, right? And I think if you're getting older, you go like, you know, if you're scared about one crisis, you go like, I have seen a bunch. We've seen a bunch of these things happening, you know. So was it Tyson that said everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face? So, right, that's it, right? I had plans. I got punched in the face. We're like, oh, there goes my plan, right? So, it is about, again, it's the connection to this openness and this feeling of, well, we'll adapt, we'll be okay, but organize in such a way. So, I believe in ecosystems, in building networks. Companies are, in a way, they're communities. it is about communities and networks and ecosystems of people collaborating. I think we have to move away from the old idea of building these pyramids, these huge structures that grow forever and ever and ever. I don't think that's going to be, if you think about it, if you suppose you're Amazon or you're Apple, or you have to grow forever. How long, for the next 100 years? Really? Really, something needs to change. It's not okay. It's not good for the planet. It's not good for people either. I believe that we are going to see, and AI is going to help us with this. Technology is going to help us create smaller companies that provide, the people who run these companies with enough money to have a good living. But it will be part of a network of smaller entities, companies, individuals, and they will become together. It will be more fluid. It will be more, in balance with the system. And again, I said, I'd rather be naive than cynical. So my naive brain says that's going to be it. We're going to be thinking in ecosystems, smaller companies, smaller teams working together in a fluid way. That's what I think we're going to do. That's what that's what I'm planning for. So I'm waiting for the punch in the face, but I'm okay with that because every time I fall down, every time there's chaos, something new emerges, and I'm curious about that. And then the last shift I want to talk about is this again. It's connected to is this roles to relationship. Innovation thrives in trust. Again, it's about you have to build trust. We hire people in companies for their thinking. We hire people in companies more and more because we want them to be smart, and we are in a knowledge economy. We've been there for a long time. But if the people that you hire, the talented people that you hire for their thinking, are afraid to say what they're thinking because they might get fired or punished for it, or because maybe their idea was stupid or whatever, there's no trust, there's no psychological safe space. What are these people doing for you? They're just telling you what they think you want to hear. So roles to relationships means that you have to think about relationships and create the space, the environment for people to really be honest and open and curious and all of those things. I'm not saying it's going to be like one big party and everybody's happy all the time. Of course not. We need to create a space as well where we can disagree, where we can have arguments in a healthy way, because it is diversity of thought that sparks new ideas. It is sometimes you need friction to have shine, right? But you need to kind of create that environment for people to enable them to have those frictions and to have those arguments and the dialogue and share honest and truthful feedback, et cetera, in order to really grow and to be innovative and to create these and so if you're hiring people for their thinking and you don't have the kind of relationships with them that they can actually and they can actually say what they think, there's something going on. So especially in a world where things are changing so quickly, because if you have a company, and I work with lots of clients right now that with companies that, and the people in those companies are, especially some of the US clients I have, they're really scared because something changed dramatically and they have no clue what people management will do. What's their faith? What's going to happen? So they're really scared. So I think that we're going to kind of go into a new era where things are different, obviously. We don't know what it's going to look like. Nobody can predict this. Nobody could have predicted and you might say, well, you can predict what AI might do and where it's growing into, and you can maybe predict a little bit on what technology is going to do, really. But could you predict that we would have a pandemic? Could you have predicted that there was there were tariffs? Could you have predicted? No, we could not have. So there's going to be more and more of these things. Those are, can be painful, but they can also be opportunities. So I would say ask better questions, think about questions instead of answers, because answers are everywhere. You know, it's easy. Just ask ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will tell you that's an amazing. Every time I ask ChatGPT something, they'll say, "That's an amazing question, Arne. That's such a wonderful thing. Here's an answer." And then the answer is like, "Wow, that sounds so much better than I could." I have dyslexia, so it's part of my brain, by the way, is the dyslexia. So I've always been kind of sort of struggling fitting into systems. Um, and but then but ChatGPT is amazing for me because it writes this thing without typos. You go like, wow, this is so amazing. And my brain is lazy because your brain is lazy too, because our brain takes so much energy. And if it kind of skips a few hard steps and stop doing the work, it will. But often it's the work and it's the passion and it's the story that creates the value. So, don't uh, don't take it too easy. Realize that something you have to be critical and think, really, is that what I want? What do you want? What are your questions? And then embrace change. Change is about the opportunities. It creates change, creates it creates chaos often, or uncertainty. But that's where we become most creative. It's also where you have to listen, step back, and go like, hey, interesting. This is, again, in design thinking, it's just zoom out. You go like, what's happening? What do I hear? You know, and then new things will emerge that are opportunities. So stay, and the last thing is, build trust across boundaries, build trust, build relationships, work together, stay connected to the people that you meet. My story has been about um, having an idea, getting punched in the face, and then meeting people along the way that helped me. It's always about people. It's always about, me. I've met Uli many years ago, and still he invites me over. I hope because I was was kind to him, but it's, and I love to help out people, and because I create value for people. I hope at least I create value for people, and I'm kind and I'm nice, and people create value for me. So I think that is when I think about future skills, those are the skills that we're going to need. Those are the skills that we're going to have to embrace. And there are lots of more words. And you look at the research done by the World Economic Forum, you'll see in the top 10, you see all these creative thinking, critical thinking, emotional intelligence. It's all there, but it's not rocket science. We know that. That's what we need to do to adapt and to become future ready. And yeah, I think Drucker said the greatest danger is to act with yesterday's logic. So embrace a new kind of thinking. That was my talk.
Thank you very much, Arne. Thank you. Big applause. I think that resonates to a lot of us, and now, as you know, those who are constant or frequent guests here of the Spotlight, there is an input session at the beginning, and then there's a Q&A. There's the ask intelligent question session. So ask good questions, or better questions session. Now, as you framed it, and so the time for a question is there. Is there any immediate question from one of you? Actually, Raika, you have to, since I'm here on an iPad, I have just a smaller screen. You are aware of the chat. I just got it here. So I don't see a hand raised yet. But I have some questions actually, and one question is, since we're all, or a lot of us are involved in schools. I see here, for example, Lukas, who is right now dealing with students at the D-School in Potsdam. I see Thomas, the same, Can in Turkey, also dealing with students. So what do you think, what would be your vision in terms of looking at the education institutions, and yourself, you are running a kind of
Mm,
professional education academy. How those and you changed. What you did is you moved into a new direction. What would be
mm.
your recommendation to traditional universities, even if they're having um, institutions like D-schools around? What would be your recommendation, looking at the three pillars you were pointing on?
Yeah. So, and I also kind of relate that to my kids, right? So I see, they're still at school, and I see how schools are struggling with technology and specifically AI. I think that there needs to be a complete flip of thinking, where they need to embrace sort of a completely new way of educating. And again, because the idea that you're there to um, have people learn things from books and memorizing all this information and all that. Sure, there's an argument to say there's a way of thinking. You have to kind of, it's good to kind of learn how to remember things. It's good to learn different languages. It's good to learn how to read and write, obviously, et cetera, et cetera. So these basic things, they're there. But then, how do you then teach kids and adults, but all of us, critical thinking, asking questions, being able to, because I haven't seen that happening at school enough. How do I ask questions? How am I going to be critical of the information that I get? And it's happening a little bit right now, but it takes a complete shift. But it's also, the thing is that the problem often is that it's not just the system, but it's also the people in the system that were trained in a certain way. So teachers, educators also need to kind of, really, think about a totally flipped classroom where often in now, for instance, if I look at my son's case, for instance, he knows more about technology than the teachers do often. Right. So how do they now teach critical thinking and asking questions? How do they do that? That would be my advice. And not saying adapt, just kind of go like, okay, use ChatGPT for everything. But it's actually, yes, use a technology, but there are different ways of using technology. You can actually use ChatGPT to challenge yourself. You can use ChatGPT to ask you tough questions, or to challenge the ideas that you have. You can use technology in different ways. These are tools, and we have to come up with new ways. And I hope schools are doing that. I haven't seen it that much yet, but it's such an amazing opportunity. But this whole idea of school is such an old system. Having these kids sitting behind their desk and just kind of the whole day just sitting and listening, or reading something or whatever, that whole, if you ask me, my honest opinion, that whole system has to go. Really serious has to go. You have to go. Kids learn more from, go outside and play and interact with people. It's, again, learn how to collaborate, learn how to co-create, be curious, try things, break things, fix things, do all those things. Not just primary school, but all schools, universities, right? Because right now, a teacher told me the other day, if if I ask my students to write a paper, I get the paper back, and they all have similar ideas, and we're like, how's that possible? Did you collaborate? And they said, no, 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 no. And then you used AI, because AI is using the knowledge, all the same knowledge, and it's going to be, it's already kind of shitty, to be honest, what comes out of AI often, because it's very generic and it uses all the knowledge, and all the knowledge, it's the same as really no knowledge. So how do you curate? How do you be critical? How do you ask questions? What do you want? What is important to you? That's, I would say.
Mhm. Yeah, thanks. I saw Benjamin as next. Benjamin and then Kolja.
And hi, thanks for giving us an insight in your journey and the vulnerability. Yeah, you showed. Also, thanks for that. Um, I just had a train of thought. I'm in professional development and training leadership, like leadership trainings, and one of the things that I see happening is that people overestimate, okay, I've got the access to all the knowledge now, but that does not mean I can transfer that in any way. So
yes,
right, so in any training I've been in within the last like 10 to 15 years, like people will say like, yeah, I've heard that, or I know that. I'm like, yeah, okay, but that doesn't mean that you're practicing that at all, right? So having passive knowledge is like the first thing, right? That people have like a passive knowledge. They've heard the concept. They, you know, within design thinking, I know the process. Yeah, okay, but what would you do in step X, Y, Z if you've got like the circumstance in this situation? What would you do, right? And then they go blank or they panic or something, right? And I see, and my trainer of thought was with having all the knowledge. You showed your phone and you were like, yeah, to your son, right? You've got all the knowledge in the world, and it's like, that's great. But how do you leverage that, and how do you don't step into that false notion of that having that knowledge does not mean that you can use that knowledge, right? Or that you have the critical approaches to leverage that. And I guess my question is, actually, I don't know what my question is. My question
no,
is just
it's a good question.
it's
I
just an
like the
open
good question.
notion of
Yeah.
that's a danger that we're stepping into now.
No, totally, I agree. And by the way, my son's name is also Benjamin. So, no, I agree, and it's a question. So I don't think you need to have a ready. I mean, I don't have an answer for that. Like, oh, this is what you do. Ask ChatGPT. ChatGPT will have an answer. You know that? Which is like the weirdest thing. If you put that into ChatGPT, ChatGPT will tell you, well, that's an amazing question, Benjamin. Wonderful thinking. I have an answer for you. But then again, you got like, okay, but what do I do? Exactly. This is, I think you're spot on. What will you do? Because we are life. We are living beings. Every cell in our body is a life, right? AI robots, they're dead. They're made from dead material. They're not us. So they won't replace us and they won't do the things so life happens outside of the screen, right? It's like, in the relationship with your friends and your family, and your health and trying to be happy and trying to kind of, those are the things that we do as people. How do we do that? And how do we use that technology and then all the knowledge in the world? It's a question to ask continuously to yourself. I don't know. I don't know. I think try different things, explore, be curious, prototype, experiment, do stuff, but don't look for the one answer. I don't think there never was and there never will be, but teach people and kids to explore and make mistakes. Try it, do something that doesn't work, learn from it. I mean, just yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I'm not really sure. Was it yesterday that we were all in the metaverse and with the NFT? Everything was metaverse. Oh, metaverse. I was working for a company. They hired people to build this metaverse and NFT stuff inside the metaverse. And then all of a sudden, ChatGPT, like that was like, a couple hours ago, boom, they fired the people who worked with the metaverse. They just they skipped it. They forgot that what they did wasn't wrong. They didn't go. They forgot to learn from it. They forgot to go like, that was really interesting. What did we learn from that? But they were so panicking, like, oh, we're investing too much money in this thing. So make mistakes. It's okay. Learn. That's what I would. Yeah, good question. Love it.
Kolja. Yeah, thanks, Arne, for your really great input. Really nice to hear the same vision that I have, or like a lot of us here. My question would be, like, maybe from your professional daily life, how can you teach future skills like in a professional way with adults? I think kids are more open, more curious, and how can you measure, like, for example, if you do a concept for a training module, like for future skills, and then how you do like before and after. Like I also have this in my work, and yeah, I'm thinking of psychology tests. So because yeah, it's easy to answer, oh, I'm good at collaborative work or whatsoever. So I would be curious, yeah, how maybe from your perspective that could be measured.
Yeah. So two thoughts on this. One is sometimes I don't know, because how do you teach emotional intelligence? How do you do that? How do you do so? Part of me starting Future Skills Academy was also my curiosity, going like, I don't know. Interesting. Let's find out. So I'm also in the journey of, meeting people, talking to psychologists, people who have that knowledge. So I don't have all that. I don't need to have all that knowledge, but I'm curious, right? I think when I started with design thinking, I always felt as like a trespasser, because it was like, oh, qualitative research. That's interesting. You're not a qualitative researcher. Oh, change management. You're not a change manager. I was like, yeah, but I'm interested in this. Like for me, design thinking was being in this space in between, not being in one box and being like, oh, so the space in between, the negative space, if from the world of art, is actually what creates, I think that's in Eastern culture, you call that ma in Japanese culture. It's that space in between, which actually creates, this, the space. So the pod is created by, the surrounding, not, the pod is not important. It's the surrounding. I am in that space in between, and I meet a lot of people who are there too. And I think that is such a good place to be, and you tap into all these these experts, if you will, which is good. So I don't know exactly. What I do know is that we shifted from I'm teaching you and I'm giving you information and giving you knowledge, and here's a method, here's a tool, here's some theory, to what is your problem? What are you trying to fix? What are you trying to do? I can help you with this information, and it fits with your problem. If my information, if my knowledge, if my skills, if what I teach you does not directly connect to something you are trying to do, it has really no value for you. So you won't be, receptive for it. I need to help you with something that you're really, really working on. And then it's long-term. So I come from a world where we would run 2-day courses, maybe 5-day, maybe there were multiple courses, but usually there was no money, no budget for this kind of thing. I don't believe in that anymore. I didn't, to be quite honest, I didn't believe in that back then either, but it was the only thing we could kind of to open the door. And hope that we would kind of have long-term engagements. So I believe that there's always an element of coaching. There needs to be coaching. You need to have a community around you. So community is important. So you need to have some kind of social evidence, if you will, like, oh, there's other people who are also doing this. So learning communities, I think, is essential for behavior change or mindset change, to see other people who are going through the same journeys and see some evidence. So it builds trust and confidence in yourself. So it's, am I fixing a problem you have? And is there a community around me that I can connect to and belong to and go like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not crazy. There's other people too. It's okay. So I think that's sort of, yeah, I'm not sure if that's a kind of an answer, but
yeah, it's good. Thank you.
Thanks. And Raika in Romania, Zibiu.
Raluca, you mean?
Hey, Raluca.
Raluca, sorry. Sorry, Raika, sorry, Raluca.
No worries.
But AR was right. RA was right.
Yes. Thank you. And thank you, Arne, for the wonderful and inspiring talk. I really relate to the getting punched in the face.
Oh boy.
But it always turns out to be a positive thing for me in the end as well. And it really helps me to become more flexible and to adapt. That's a valuable lesson. I also related with the story of your son, but not regarding knowledge. Actually, regarding collaboration and the mindset behind collaboration, it's something that recently struck me, that this really is a future skill. And I liked how you frame it into shifting the mindset, because my whole life I somehow believed this is like it's a clear thing for everyone. It's what we say, a lot of the methods we teach in design thinking are actually common sense. And I used to believe that, but recently I started realizing that sometimes creating ideas doesn't come that easily to everyone. For some people, this is the most difficult part. For other people, the most difficult part is implementing the ideas. I mean, and my question is actually, how do you approach people that don't see this as common sense? So really, how do you engage with them about the future of work and this shift in change, where psychological safety isn't the common sense in an organization or isn't the status quo? It requires a change in mindset. So how?
Yeah, very good question. That's a tough one. How do you, again, if you don't have, because I don't think there are people who are not able to come up with ideas. I think they don't have the confidence. So it's a lack of confidence, and that can be fed by the system that they're part of. So, if they're not in the environment that creates that confidence, it's really tough. Yeah. So, of course, I mean, and I'm speaking from a very kind of luxury kind of ideal situation where you're like, yeah, it's all good. You get punched in the face and you just get up again. Some people will have a hard time getting up again. There's lots of people who are losing their jobs right now and are totally stressed out. I know quite a few people, actually, also in the world of design. Graphic designers, design agencies, kind of are going bust. People are losing their jobs. It's happening. Teachers are losing their jobs because of the current environment. So yeah, it's really, really tough, but so I don't really have a clear answer for that. It's such an individual thing. So it depends so much on the person, it's the psychology and the history. So I think a lot of people will benefit from understanding sort of themselves a little bit more and where things are coming from. But that's, you go really deep in psychology, and it's coaching. They will need a lot of coaching and a different environment. So I would say find an environment where you are, in a safe space. If you're not in a safe space, if at any time you're in a company and there's a meeting and there is a manager, someone in the hierarchy higher than you talking, and you don't agree, but you don't raise your hand and say, I don't agree, get out. Find another job. Sorry. I know it's not that easy, but try. Change will help you grow. So yeah, but it's confidence. I've known so many people who wanted to leave and just didn't. And once they did, it became so much better, right? But again, yeah, I don't really have an answer, except that I'd love to talk to these people individually because they're all people, right? They're not groups.
Raika.
Yeah,
There's also a question in the chat from Can. Maybe Can, you want to ask that?
Why my hand is raised. So Can, do you want to ask it yourself?
Yeah, up to you, actually. I mean, it's your
I have
turn.
dyslexia. I have dyslexia, right? I'm watching. I saw your thing, and I was like, can I read it at the same time and listen to Raluca? And I was like, no, I'm gonna listen to Raluca first. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, thank you, and it was really inspiring talk. I was just we were just trying kind of an experiment here with the industrial design students that we just trying them to create a design from scratch, actually, from primary data, secondary data, problem definition, and ideation. They're just doing with the ChatGPT and language models. Even they are just creating artificial personas, and they are interviewing with them, so they are getting the data, and then they are just creating design with other visual models. But when we ask some questions, criticizing them, how to understand how did they decide their design problems or some decisions, design decisions, they are not aware of it. So it's a kind of something missing, actually. They are doing it. They have some methods. They have some tools, but they are not, they are doing their own decisions. So I think AI is just deciding for them. So it's make it much more critical for us to teach them as a kind of a designer way of thinking and criticizing. It was something special. That's why I would like to ask, how do you have some advice for to be aware of their design decisions or kind of reflections? I don't know.
I think the answer is in your question, to be honest. I think it is about actually asking them those questions every time. So they become conscious of the fact that I haven't thought about it. So I think it's about making that explicit and helping them making it explicit. So part of that process should be asking them during that process to explicitly kind of document what they're doing and why they're doing that. So if they give AI like a prompt, you know, why do they do that? And these are sort of help them with reflecting, because how old are they?
It's 20.
Yeah, okay. So they're still quite young, right? And sort of part of their development, I think they're not really, I mean, I think when you're in your 30s, you go like, huh, why do I do what I do? So, right. So they need to learn how to do that. I think part of what you teach them, if not the most important part of what you teach them, is to actually ask those questions, right? And you could create a process for that specifically that kind of goes along with those kind of projects they do. So if they use it, why do they use it? Why do they choose that language model? Why did they put that prompt in? What do they want to achieve? What is the thing that they're trying to do? And is the outcome actually, does it actually fit what they were trying to achieve? And if not, why did they still choose that? You know, so it's about reflection and making things explicit. I always say also in design thinking, it's making the implicit explicit. That's why we like to use the Post-its and the papers and the pens and the markers. You know, back then we were still writing on walls. But right, so it's about visualizing it, making you aware of the decisions that you make, even though you weren't aware of because these are all choices and decisions they make. What choice did you make? What decision did you make? It's really tough. It's really hard. It's hard work, which means that it's the right thing to do, I think. Because to be honest, if you ask me, you know, often it's quite intuitive. You go like, oh, I don't know, it sounds good. You know, if you ask any, you know, a good friend of mine is an art director, graphic designer. If she makes a design, or I would ask her, why did you do that? She'd go like, I like this, or this feels right. But again, it's good to know, like, oh, okay, but why? Oh, because I think it's a trend. Oh, right, because I've seen all these things online and people are doing this. And I think I was inspired by, because our brain is not, I mean, we hallucinate, you know, we come up with stuff like, I don't know, like, because I don't know actually why I made this choice. I like it. Right. So every design, whether you're using AI or not, you know, everyone could benefit from making a little bit of like a little a journal, right? Journaling. Why did you do this? And you could make that really deep into so did you make that? Was it a conscious decision? No. Was it a so this is, I think, you know, it's just talked about, you know, how what would schools kind of benefit from? How would they? I think that is something that if you teach kids journaling, like every day, you just go like, what happened? What did I do, and why? Why did I do that? Was that? You know, I think that would be my thinking right now, spontaneously.
Thank you so much.
Any other? Don't see. Who's that? Benjamin again. Great to see you, by the way. Great to see you again.
Luca, were you a little bit faster than me, or was I first?
I've seen you
ahead.
first,
Go
and
ahead.
Okay.
then
All right.
right after Raluca.
Okay. Just Chan, I mean, I'm going to write you an email, but I just remember, Uli, at the last GDTA physical meeting, the AI, and please help me with the title. I forgot the title. I was talking to a professor from Israel. I sadly don't have his name right on the top of my head, but he told me, yes, he told me about experiments about interaction of AI and different disciplines of students, and how different disciplines within their training then differently interact with the AI. And I thought that was very interesting. So like the industrial engineers were interacting differently than the business students, and all with a like little different shift and bias, right? So some were taking the information and just used it, some were questioning it, some were using it as a creative tool, some were using it for data. So it was quite interesting to see the different disciplines interact with the AI. I just wanted to share that. And back to Arne, to the Q&A. I was just thinking, I so much believe in experiential learning and learning by the experience. What would you say are like the core experience, if you're not thinking about your, the future skills? What are like core experiences people should make to have that as a like an experience or anchor to navigate into the future? Does the question make sense to you? Is it clear what I'm asking for?
Well, maybe my interpretation is wrong, but what it triggers with me, the first thing, actually, the word came up is travel.
Okay.
Travel. Meet different people, different cultures, live in another country for a while, see the world, see all the different kind of people living differently, having different kind of, because your reality is not my reality. There are different realities. I think that will make you grow. That will make you. There's a beautiful quote from a poem in Amsterdam underneath this bridge. I pass that bridge often, and I translate it from Dutch. It says, "Returning is not the same as staying." So it's basically about, it's an old poem for travelers. So if you say you have a twin brother, and your brother stays in the city that you live in, and you travel the world and you come back, you live in the same city? No, you don't. You live in two different cities, because you will see things differently. I think that is such an important skill. And I think that's one of the experiences that you have. And the other things are more about confidence. And I think that part of building confidence, enable yourself to be part of different communities, will allow you to see things through different lenses, and having the confidence to just experience that and say, I might be wrong. How am I wrong? How can I be, how wrong am I? I have this exercise I did the other day in my design thinking training. It's like, how wrong are you? It's so cool, because we know, you're like, oh, and then actually, that's AI can help you ask all these questions. You can prompt it to ask you those questions, like, how wrong am I? Oh, it's really interesting. So I don't know if this is an answer, but the first thing that popped into my head.
No, I like it. It's a good. I mean, we could probably talk another hour about that. And I would have follow-up questions, like how would you make, if you can't send all the people to travel, how would you build that within?
You can travel in different ways. You can travel
exactly.
You can, there's reads. I was reading this article about research done on sort of people having more ability for empathy because they read novels, because you're traveling your mind, right? So if you read a novel, you see the world through different eyes as well from someone, and that actually helps you build empathy in other ways as well. So there's multiple ways of traveling and experimenting and trying new things, and jump into something that is scary, right? And then that's
thanks.
Great.
Thanks. Last very brief question from Raluca.
Yeah. So if you have to jump out, Arne, I can ask the question another time, because we meet each other constantly online, so it's no worries. if you still have a few minutes, I can say.
I think you have a tough time schedule, Arne. Is that right? If I remember right.
Actually, my doorbell is ringing. the studio.
Okay.
So
I
I
leave
had
it for the next
Okay.
meeting then.
yeah.
Let's
I gave him 4 minutes.
actually let's postpone that, Raluca, if it's okay
Yeah.
with you, and let's have a big thank you to Arne for joining us today here and giving us his insights. Thank you very much.
My
I
pleasure.
like very much your framing of design thinking. We are the space in between. And this is how I feel, like lots of years now, the space in between the different disciplines, space in between people, space in between different organizations. And let's stay in touch, Arne. Let's be a
Yes.
part of that vibrant global network. And I hope to see you soon, pretty soon, somewhere around with the GDTA or the Future Skills Alliance context. Thank you very much to all of you for joining. Thanks to Raika for preparing everything. Also on a very short notice because she was traveling. And see you soon. There's no next June event scheduled yet, but it will be scheduled pretty soon, and we let you know on LinkedIn and on the website. Thank you to all of you. Have a great day, afternoon, evening, good night. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Tschüss.